Hello, and welcome to the Gifted and Talented Beginning of the Year training. Let's talk about the Gifted Student Services Plan. As you know, the district must have a process in place to annually notify parents of their student services. Parents and families should be notified as soon as possible about their student services. To assist with this process, a new GSSP was shared through Infinite Campus in June of 2023. To expedite creating the GSSP, the plan auto-populates from the service delivery options marked in a student's gifted and talented GT record. Additionally, comments can be added to the GT record and will show on the GSSP in the parent portal. Therefore, be very careful of the comments typed in the comments box. The GSSP transfers with the student and is imported through the records transfer process. A report can be generated to show which students are in the GSSP portal. The portal update tool for the GSSP will turn on portal access by school and grade level. Please see the GSSP training and recording on the GT Coordinator One Stop for more information and directions. As we start a new year, it is a good time to review screening and identification processes and procedures. Here are some questions to think about as you begin a new year. What are the district's policies and procedures for screening? If you are unsure, most district policies and procedures have been adopted from the Kentucky School Board Association, KSBA. They are usually posted on the Board of Education webpage on the district site. Gifted and talented policies and procedures are located under Chapter 8, which is curriculum. Next, do the screening policies and procedures ensure equal access for all students? It is important to remember that the GT program should be accessible to all students. This means if a student has an individual education program or IEP that has testing accommodations, the district must implement those accommodations when giving GT assessments and evaluations. The district should also review their policies and procedures for cultural bias and equity. Are there any potential barriers, and how will those barriers be addressed? Barriers might include such items as when and where the assessments are administered. For example, if auditions are held on a Saturday, will all students have transportation who have been referred to participate? Which assessments does the district have for screening? Assessments are normed, and as the test gets older, so do the norms. Review your assessments to see when they were last normed. Best practice is for norms to be within 10 years. Which students may need accommodations? As stated earlier, for the screening process to be equitable, IEP and 504 plan accommodations need to be implemented for the process to be equitable and in compliance with state and federal regulations. Do staff need assistance or training on how to assist in the screening process? It is a good idea to get out the screening administration manual and go over the process with staff to ensure everyone understands the rules and directions so that the screening is valid. Once students are screened, then the identification process begins. Here are some questions to think about. What are the district's policies and procedures for identification? Again, your district may have adopted KSBA policies and procedures that should be reviewed. Should there be a meeting between school and administrative staff and the GT Identification, Selection, and Placement Committee to review identification criteria? If education staff are assisting and referring students, they should know the regulation criteria for each of the 5 categories. It may be helpful for them to have a list of characteristics for the gifted areas. It might also be helpful for them to know about exceptions or special considerations and how they can be applied using the regulation criteria. It might also be helpful for them to understand underachieving students. Which assessments are available? Do you have assessments or ways to identify students for each of the 5 gifted areas? If not, the district should make a plan to ensure each gifted area has an identification pathway or procedure. How will the district ensure equity when assessing students? Equal access to services is important. Students who need gifted services cannot participate if the identification process does not have equal access. When were the assessments last normed? Has it been over 10 years? Review how long it has been since assessments have been purchased and normed. This can usually be found on the assessment website or on the administration booklet. What are the procedures for gifted categories that do not have paper pencil assessments? For the gifted categories of the visual and performing arts, creativity, and leadership, how is the district identifying these students? For VPA, which is the visual and performing arts, evidence is gathered through performance, which may be collected by auditions, recommendations, or a portfolio of work. For creativity, evidence may be collected formally or informally, but must gather information about a student's ability for originality and flexibility of thought, fluency, and elaboration. For leadership, a student must show a willingness to lead in the classroom, student organization, and community activity. Should local norms be used? If so, how? What are local norms? If you are unsure, please review the local norms presentation linked here and posted on the GTC One Stop. Another resource is the Using Local Norms brochure. The brochure is also posted on the GT Coordinator One Stop. Let's talk more about special considerations and identification. First of all, what are special considerations? Special considerations are exceptions to the regulation criteria. Staff must use these exceptions if they believe a student has a condition which might keep them from being considered eligible for the gifted program. 3 special populations to consider are students with an IEP, disadvantaged students, and underachieving students. The regulation defines disadvantaged as operating under conditions detrimental to normal cognitive or affective growth due to socioeconomic limitations, cultural factors, geographic isolation, or various combinations of these factors to a degree that requires special considerations. Underachieving is defined as the development of a significant gap between a student's potential ability and demonstrated achievement to a degree that there is an overall diminished ability to achieve at the expected level of ability. How do staff use special considerations? If the GT committee decides to use special considerations when identifying a student for the GT program, they should document their reasoning and place it in the student's folder. How does the GT Identification and Placement Committee apply special considerations? How is a GT record entered when special considerations have been applied? In Infinite Campus, IC, there is a checkbox for special considerations and a drop-down box that lists special ed, disadvantaged, or underachieving. It is important to remember that disadvantaged is more than being economically disadvantaged. A student could be disadvantaged due to special considerations because of cultural factors, geographic location, or a combination of these factors. For more information about special considerations, please see the Special Considerations video and Special Considerations PowerPoint. You can click on the links here, or you can also find it on the GT Coordinator One Stop. Using special considerations assists in ensuring equity in the GT program. Another section of the regulation that focuses on equity is Section 3.3. It states, a local school district shall provide a system for diagnostic screening and identification of strengths, gifted behaviors, and talents, which will provide equal access for racial and ethnic minority children, disadvantaged children, and children with disabilities. Students should be provided their accommodations during diagnostic screening and the identification process to ensure there is equal access to the gifted program. Districts should review policies and procedures to ensure not only is there equality and equity, but that the identification system does not contain barriers, especially for underrepresented populations. Here is another Kentucky regulation that states students must be provided accommodations such as extra time or a reader on the state or district assessment if their IEP specifies these accommodations. According to 707 KAR 1:320, Section 5, subsection 10, an IEP, an individual education program, shall contain a statement of any individual accommodations to be provided the child in order to participate in the state or district assessment. These accommodations shall be based on the requirements contained in 703 KAR 5:070, inclusion of special populations in the state required assessment and accountability programs. A tool to assist with looking at district data and equal access is the QA Gifted and Talented Report. This report can assist with looking at your data to review GT and total district student data. Reviewing this report can help you look at equal access to the program, especially from underrepresented or special student populations. There are two QA reports that can be generated. There is the detail report, which gives you individual student data, and then it can be run as an aggregate report, and this gives you student group data. There are 3 pages of the report. Page 1 gives you a comparison of GT program to the total enrollment. Page 2 gives student data by gifted categories, and page 3 gives you student data by grade levels. This is the click path for finding this in Infinite Campus. You go to Reporting, then KDE Reports, then QA Gifted and Talented Reports. If you don't see this report listed, then please contact your CASES person or your district technology team for access to this report. Let's look together at the first page of the report. The first page gives a comparison between the GT program and the total enrollment of students in the district. It is disaggregated by gender, ethnicity, and special populations. Best practice would be for the GT program to mirror or mostly look like the total enrollment of the district. If there are large discrepancies, like over 20%, this would be a good opportunity for the GT coordinator, GT teacher or teachers, and the GT committee to discuss what the root of the issue might be and to make future plans and modifications. Next, let's look at page 2. This page of the report breaks down the students into categories. You will notice that primary talent pool is included in the unduplicated count. Therefore, the primary talent pool, or PTP data, should be considered when calculating formal student identification numbers. Finally is page 3 of the QA report. This page disaggregates the student data by grade level and gifted category. As we look at equal access to the GT program, it is good practice to review the gifted student data across the state and also in your district. The data in this table can be found in the school report card and the Quality Assurance Gifted and Talented report that I talked about earlier. This can be generated in Infinite Campus. In thinking about access to the GT program, the percentage in the gifted program should somewhat mirror the total student enrollment percent. Dr. Donna Ford, who is known nationally for her work in equity and cultural education, uses the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's 80% rule. This is sometimes called the 4/5 rule. It is a technique for determining whether disparate impact exists in a given scenario. In this example, the statewide percent for African American, or AA, is 10.72%. Therefore, if applying the goal of 80%, the GT program would be 8.5%. The 2021-2022 data shows that there are 6.35% of American students in the program. The overall total enrollment is 10.72. This is a difference of about 2.23%. If we look at the total Hispanic population, the state average is at about 8.5%. The GT program percent for Hispanic students is 4.99%. An 80% goal would be 6.8%. So as you can see, this would be a difference of about 4.95%. In this table, we see a comparison of the GT program in our state, again, for 2020-2021. In this table, the percent of total enrollment to the state GT program for free and reduced price meals is for the total enrollment is 60.16%. However, the percent for GT students for free and reduced price meals is 36.67%. The difference between total enrollment and the state GT program for students with disabilities is 11.89% to 3.67%. The difference between total enrollment and the state GT program for English learners is 4.51% to 1.63%. As you can see, there are some discrepancies and disproportionalities between these percentages. Please ensure that you review your data for these special student populations. These could be some of our most vulnerable populations for whom GT services might change the trajectory of their lives. Now let's look at data trends over time. I will give you a minute to review the trends. The GT program has made some progress in identifying students in underrepresented populations. Progress is good. However, we need to keep looking at our policies and procedures and assessments to ensure equal access for all students. Looking at your data and discussing it is an activity that could be done in your district. Once you look at your data, it could lead to discussions about possible barriers to screening and identification. These are discussions that could lead to changes in policies and procedures, which might lead to more equitable screening and identification. That was a lot of information. So if you would like, press pause here and take a few minutes to reflect on your program screening and identification processes, or generate the QA Gifted and Talented report for your district or schools and review your district's data before we head into the topic of services. Now let's discuss services. One of the roles of the GT Identification and Selection Committee is to decide services for GT students. Beginning of the year could be the time to discuss the GT Identification and Placement Committee members. Also, before you even think about members, do you have a committee? Who are your committee members? Do you need new members? The definition in Section 1 of the regulation, subsection 17, says Gifted and Talented Identification and Placement Committee means a school or district committee made up of gifted education coordinator or gifted education teacher and representatives from classroom teachers, administrators, counselors, special education teachers, and/or other appropriate personnel who follow district policies and procedures to formally identify and determine level and types of service options. So let's look at what the purposes are for the GT Identification and Placement Committee according to regulation. The first purpose is to provide feedback on the adequacy of the district's identification and diagnostic procedures. The second purpose is to ensure that a variety of views are heard during the selection and placement process. The third purpose is to determine which students meet identification criteria and which services at what level shall be included in each identification student's gifted and talented student services plan. And last but not least, fourthly, to help provide communication and support in the schools and community. Do you need to review the gifted category criteria since it is the role of the committee to identify students for the program? Does the committee understand special considerations? Do you need to review with your committee the special considerations or the exceptions to the regulations? Exceptions can be made if there are environmental, cultural, and disabling conditions which mask a child's true abilities, such as a student who qualifies as an exceptional child, as defined in KRS 157.200, disadvantaged or underachieving. Before the committee meets to discuss services and placement, the district must implement a procedure to obtain information related to the interests, needs, and abilities of an identified student to use in determining appropriate services. Information could be obtained in different ways. For example, parents could complete an online form, or information could be gathered during a meeting with a parent. The beginning of the year is a time to think about student services. This may have been addressed in your last year's program evaluation. Some questions to think about are, what services are students receiving? What service model is the district providing? Are you differentiating or replacing or supplementing or modifying? How do you know? Could you look at the last gifted student service plan? Could you look at their GT record in Infinite Campus? Do services need updating based on parent input, student interest, need, or ability? Do staff know who their students are so they can assist with differentiating instruction for them in the classroom? Are there students who may need acceleration? How will you access if this may be the case? If the district is using an enrichment model, where are services supplemented? What opportunities are available this school year? Who could your partners be in providing services? Are there community members such as music or band directors or 4-H staff who would be willing to assist with services or to donate their time? Or organizations have grants to help provide services. One of the keys to a great program is communication, and the other is training. Many GT students spend most of their time in the regular classroom. Therefore, staff may need training on the characteristics of gifted students and how to provide instruction for them. If possible, ask for a short time to present information about the characteristics of gifted students. You might also train teachers on how to use jot down forms for observations or other screening tools. Professional Learning Community, PLC time, is also a good time to meet with teachers to talk about gifted students and provide resources and support. If there is not a time at a faculty meeting, think about creating a short video describing the gifted categories and characteristics to look for. A recording could also be created, giving a few best practices for differentiating instruction for gifted students. There are many resources for services. Here are a few to think about. School and district staff, they can provide specific skills to provide services like maybe dance. 21st Century and Gear Up program has many different types of programs available that might be helpful for students and their services. Also, you might turn to community members and centers. They may offer visual and performing arts programs. Also, local businesses. Maybe there are businesses in your town or school or region that could offer leadership opportunities or other types of services. Another organization is the 4-H organization. This organization might offer leadership, visual and performing art, and creativity services. Here are some examples of statewide resources for services. Fund for the Arts. This is an organization, a state organization, that provides curriculum-based arts education programs. They have many different types of grants that you could look at on their website. Also, there is Kentucky Arts Council. This is a grants and arts program. They offer grants for transportation as well as for specialists to come to your school or district. Then there's also the Kentucky Odyssey of the Mind. This is a creativity development and 21st century skills organization. Then we also have Student Technology Leadership Program, or STLP as it's widely known. This is a program in our state that can be used to develop technological skills, leadership. They do competitions and there are recognitions and certifications. After the district has thought about services for students, parents need to be notified annually regarding the services included in the Gifted and Talented Service Plan, or GSSP. The beginning of the year is a good time to think about how you will notify parents and what type of plan the district will use. If using the GSSP in Infinite Campus, you could contact the CASES staff, and CASES stands for Kentucky Student Information System, to assist you with collecting emails from parents of gifted students. You could email parents when the GSSP has been published to the parent portal in Infinite Campus to let them know it is available for review. The email could also include procedures to follow in requesting a change in services. If using a plan created by the district, you should contact parents or guardians to let them know that the GSSP is ready or will be sent home using such communications as an email or using the district's communication app. There are several benefits to using the GSSP and progress report in Infinite Campus. It can be seen by parents in Infinite Campus through the parent portal. It transfers with students when they move to different regions in the state or different districts. It keeps a chronological record of the students' GSSPs. You can print them individually or you can batch print them. And if you want to know more about this, please look at the GT Data Standards. There is a link also to the training for the new Gifted Student Service Plan. Again, that was a lot of information to take in. If you would like, press pause here to think about your GT committee and services plan to be offered this school year. This might be a good time to investigate the GSSP and progress report in Infinite Campus before we head into our next topic, which is files and records. The beginning of the year can be a time for files and records cleanup. As you review files, please follow the guidance in the Public School District Records Retention Schedule for GT files and other GT documentation like committee meetings. Each district has a Kentucky Department of Library and Archives, KDLA, regional contact who can assist with how information is filed in your region. In a GT student folder, please file information such as test scores, audition information, writing responses, and copies of the Gifted Student Service Plan and progress reports if you are not using the IC forms. As we think about records, let's talk about GT records and Infinite Campus. Each year, new staff join the district. If there are new enrollment staff, please ensure they understand that GT student records and forms do not automatically transfer. You could schedule time to meet with staff to review this process or create a short video that reviews the transfer process. Some other ideas to ensure GT student records are not missed is to include a question on the enrollment form and work with CASES staff to create a process or report that lists transfer students. The data standards for GT and student records transfer data standards should be helpful for reviewing the process for importing records and forms such as the GSSP and progress report. Please remember that when you see a line through GT documents, that does not mean a student does not have a GT record. That means the student does not have forms. The GT record is imported through the Kentucky State Reporting Import link. Here are a few resources to assist you with ways to support yourself and your staff. First, let's talk about money or the GT funding allocation. During the 2022 legislative session, House Bill 1 increased the GT appropriation $6.2 million a year to $10 million a year over the next biennium. Each district receives a base amount of $20,000, regardless of the size of the district, to support its local GT program. In addition to the base amount, the formula allocates a per student rate based on the previous school year's total enrollment. Award letters are posted on the KDE State Grants webpage. The new fiscal year begins July 1st. With this increase, funding, the first significant increase in several budgets, the funding formula was reviewed and changed with an emphasis on providing a more equitable distribution of funds to support GT programs and students across the Commonwealth. Award letters and allocations are posted on the State Grants webpage. The new fiscal year begins July 1st each year. Next, let me share 2 OSEAL, or Office of Special Education and Early Learning, regular communications that are emailed to those on the listserv. There is a weekly news you can use email. This email contains announcements from all programs in OSEAL, including Gifted and Talented. Be on the lookout for announcements about staff and students, opportunities, and GT program information. There is also a quarterly newsletter that is emailed. To receive this newsletter, you must subscribe using the KDE News and Alert system. Please see the link for more information. Another way we communicate good news and best practices are through the Office of Special Education and Early Learning Spotlight. If you have good news or a best practice to share, please use the linked form. To share information about the GT program, the GT Coordinator One Stop was developed to house training presentations, videos, and forms. There are training presentations and videos for new GT coordinators. This particular training and video helps new GT coordinators understand more about their responsibilities and the regulations and some resources to help them get started. Also, there's the Gifted Student Service Plan presentation and video that I mentioned earlier, and also the special considerations. There are some good guidance documents. For example, the GT Data Standards. This is a really important document that you may want to print out or save to your computer or your device. This is kind of like the Bible for Infinite Campus. This tells you how to enter records. It tells you, how to do different processes. It talks about how to transfer records. It talks about what to do when you want to create a Gifted Student Service Plan. It's very important that you understand that there is a data standard for everything in Infinite Campus and also for the GT program. Also posted on the GT Coordinator One Stop are commonly used screeners and forms and a social emotional guidance document. The social emotional guidance document was created in collaboration with the State Advisory Council for Gifted and Talented Education and gives some really good tips about students and how to help students in the Gifted and Talented program with their social emotional needs. Another source of information that can be found are all these different websites. There's the Kentucky Association for Gifted Education. That is the advocacy group in our state. And this group offers professional development and trainings and different ideas for gifted education. Also, there's the Kentucky Department of Education, the Gifted Resources page. And there are 2 new pages underneath the Gifted Resource page. There's differentiation for elementary school classroom teachers, and also another link under there for secondary differentiation for teachers in the classroom. Then there's also the National Association for Gifted Children. This is a good website. It has lots of good resources and training for educators. It also has information about their annual conference that they have each year. Then there's the National Center for Research on Gifted Education. This is located on the University of Connecticut's campus and also through Johns Hopkins. And there's lots of good information on data and research done on gifted education. Linked on this slide are several articles about identification, assessment, and training. There are several videos that could be beneficial to you or your staff in understanding GT students.
If you would like ELA credit for this training, please click on the link or use your device to link to the QR code. The link will take you to a short Google form to request ELA credit. I will email you a certificate once the Google form request is received. I hope the information in this training has been beneficial. If you have any questions or need to schedule time for technical assistance, here is my contact information. Lynn Lockard at education.ky.gov. Or you can reach me at 502-564-4970, extension 4115. Best wishes for a great beginning to your school year, and thank you for watching this training.